The basement door slammed shut behind me like a coffin lid, sealing out the howling Midwest gale that had chased me across 3 counties. Rain hammered the foundation above, but down here, in the damp chill of Mr. Harlan's old root cellar, the only storm was the one raging in my chest as I spun around and locked eyes with him. Brandon, soaked to the bone, his broad shoulders heaving, that same cocky half-smile frozen on his lips like it had been the day the whispers started. "Justin," he rasped, voice cracking over the thunder. "You look like hell. Get in here before you drown us both." I backed against the rough stone wall, heart slamming harder than the wind against the hatch, because in that split second, with the lantern's flicker carving shadows across his face, I saw it all crash back. The locker room jeers, the scrawled notes in my textbooks, the rumor that wasn't just words but a grenade that blew my senior year to pieces. I'd fled Elmwood High that afternoon, diploma be damned, trading futures for the anonymity of a Greyhound ticket and a string of dead-end towns. But here he was, the epicenter of it all, blocking the only way out, his hand outstretched like he thought we could just pick up where we'd left off, pretending none of it happened. The air in the cellar hung thick with the scent of earth and mildew, undercut by the sharp tang of ozone from the storm raging outside. Brandon didn't move closer, but his presence filled the cramped space like he always had, 6 feet of quarterback confidence crammed into a boy who'd traded shoulder pads for a threadbare flannel shirt and grease-stained jeans. He was thinner now, the edges of his jaw sharper, like life had been gnawing at him too, but those hazel eyes still held that spark, the one that used to light up the football field and, God help me, my stupid secret dreams. "What the hell are you doing here?" I finally managed, my voice a gravelly whisper that barely cut through the drip-drip of water seeping from a crack in the ceiling. My backpack, stuffed with the last of my cash, a change of socks, and a dog-eared copy of The Catcher in the Rye, thudded to the floor at my feet. I'd hitched into this nowhere town off I-70 just hours ago, chasing a vague lead on a farmhand gig from a Craigslist ad that promised no questions asked. Instead, the sky had cracked open, and I ducked into the first abandoned barn I saw, only to stumble down these stairs when the roof started leaking like a sieve. Brandon rubbed a hand over his wet hair, sending droplets scattering like tiny accusations. "Same as you, I guess, hiding from the rain, or whatever else is chasing you." He glanced at the door, as if expecting the tempest to burst through, then back at me with that tilt of his head, the one that used to make the cheerleaders swoon and me bury my face in my locker. "Harlan's place has been empty since he croaked last winter. Folks say it's haunted, but it's dry. Mostly." I snorted, a bitter sound that echoed off the jars of pickled beets lining the shelves. Relics from a life long gone. Haunted. Fitting. Last place I'd expect to run into the ghost of my past. My fingers itched to grab my bag and bolt, but the wind outside was a banshee, and besides, what was I running to? Another motel bed that smelled like regret? Another alias scratched on a job application? No, for better or worse, I was stuck here with him, the boy who'd been both my salvation and my undoing. We'd been inseparable once, back when Elmwood felt like the whole world and not a pressure cooker ready to explode. Freshman year, he dragged me onto the JV team despite my protests. "Come on. Just, you're built like a damn oak tree, you could block for me no sweat." And I'd spent practices stealing glances at the way his muscles flexed under the sun, memorizing the curve of his neck when he laughed. It was innocent then, or so I told myself, 2 kids from split-level homes on the edge of cornfields, dreaming of escaping to Chicago or New York, anywhere the air didn't taste like fertilizer and small-minded stares. But sophomore year, things shifted. The touches lingered a beat too long during huddles, the late-night texts about nothing turned into everything. "Missed that pass today, but hey, pizza at Gino's?" And I started noticing how his knee would brush mine under the cafeteria table, how he'd lean in close enough that I could smell the Irish Spring on his skin. I didn't have the words for it yet, but I knew it was dangerous, a spark in a powder keg of a town where fag was the punchline to every joke and the guidance counselor handed out pamphlets on traditional values like candy. The rumor hit like a blindside tackle right before homecoming. It started small, a whisper from Tommy Reese, Brandon's best friend and resident loudmouth, about how he'd caught us behind the bleachers, hands where they shouldn't be. Lies, all of it. We'd been arguing about algebra homework. my frustration boiling over into a shove that sent him sprawling into the dirt. But Tommy spun it gold, adding flourishes about stolen kisses and weird vibes, until by lunch, the halls buzzed with it. Notes in my locker, queerbait loves jockstrap. Spray paint on my truck. Brandon's bitch. And Brandon? He laughed it off at first, clapping me on the back in the parking lot. Ignore 'em, bro, they're just jealous. But then the calls came. His dad, the fire chief, red-faced and bellowing about disgracing the family name. His mom, silent tears over Sunday pot roast. By Monday, Brandon had switched lunch tables, and the space between us grew into a chasm I couldn't bridge. I dropped out 2 weeks later, walked into Principal Hargrove's office, handed over my books and said, "I'm done." No dramatic speech, no tears, just the quiet click of the door behind me. Mom begged me to stay. Dad just nodded like he'd seen it coming, and I hit the road with $200 in my pocket and an ache in my gut that hasn't faded since. 3 years of bouncing. Busboy in Des Moines, line cook in Omaha, warehouse grunt in Kansas City. Each job a bandage on the wound, each night a replay of what-ifs. What if I'd fought the rumor? What if Brandon had stood up? What if I'd never let myself feel? Now, here we were, two ghosts in a forgotten hole, the storm outside mirroring the one brewing between us. Brandon sank onto an overturned crate, elbows on knees, staring at his boots like they held the answers. "You vanished, man. Just poof. I looked for you, after." My laugh was sharp, slicing the air. "Looked for me? From the safety of your prom king throne? Spare me, Bran. You let it happen. Hell, you probably started it to save your own ass." His head snapped up, eyes flashing. "That's bullshit and you know it. Tommy was pissed 'cause I told him to back off you. Said he was being a dick about the chem project. Next thing, the whole team's in on it, and I'm..." He trailed off, jaw clenching. "I was scared, okay? Scared of losing everything. Dad had me lined up for a scholarship, the whole 9 yards. But losing you? That was worse. I just froze." The admission hung there, raw and unfiltered, and for a heartbeat, I wanted to believe him. Wanted to cross the 3 feet between us and pull him into a hug like we used to after losses, whispering we'll get him next time. But trust was a luxury I'd buried with my high school ID, and the scars ran too deep. "Scared?" I echoed, sliding down the wall until I sat on the cold floor, knees drawn up. Try terrified. Every day, wondering if they'd corner me after practice. Beat the gay out of me. Try alone, Bran. That's what you left me with. Thunder rolled, shaking dust from the rafters, and in the dim light, I saw the weight settle on him. The lines around his eyes that hadn't been there at 18. The way his hands trembled as he lit a cigarette, the flame dancing like our fragile peace. He exhaled smoke toward the ceiling, watching it curl. "I know. God, Justin, I know. Dropped out of state after 1 semester. Football wasn't the same without you spotting me, yelling plays from the sidelines. Ended up back here, working the mill, dating girls I don't give a damn about. Living half a life, 'cause the other half walked out that door." The words landed like punches, each one cracking the armor I'd built. I wanted to rage, to demand why now, why here, but the storm had stripped us bare, and in the quiet lulls, truth seeped out like the rainwater pooling at my feet. We talked then, halting at first, about the teams we'd rooted for on grainy TV screens in dive bars, the mutual friends who'd scattered like leaves. He confessed to punching Tommy at a reunion last fall, splitting his lip over a careless joke. I admitted to the tattoo on my ribs, a compass rose inked in a Sioux City parlor, north to nowhere. Hours blurred, the lantern wick burning low, until exhaustion tugged at us, and we leaned against opposite walls, eyes heavy but locked, the space between shrinking with every shared breath. When the rain eased to a patter, dawn's gray light filtering through the hatch cracks, Brandon stood, offering his hand again. "Truce? At least till we get coffee. There's a diner 5 miles out, best pie in Ohio." I hesitated, the old fear coiling tight, but his grip was steady, warm, pulling me up like he used to. "1 coffee," I said, voice rough, Then we see. As we climbed the stairs, the world outside washed clean. I wondered if this was redemption or just another rumor waiting to spread. But for the first time in years, I didn't run. The diner was a relic, all chrome stools and checkered floors. The kind of place where the coffee was bottomless and the waitress called everyone Han, without meaning it. We slid into a booth by the window, steam fogging the glass as the morning sun clawed through the clouds, turning the parking lot into a slick mirror of puddles. Brandon ordered black coffee and cherry pie, his old standby, and I got eggs over easy with toast, the normalcy of it all feeling like a dream I might wake from any second. He stirred sugar into his mug, the spoon clinking like a metronome to my pulse. "So, where you been, really?" Not the Cliff's Notes version. I poked at my eggs, the yolk bleeding yellow across the plate like unspoken sins. Everywhere and nowhere. Des Moines first, washed dishes till my hands cracked. Then Omaha hauling crates for a meatpacking plant. Felt like Sisyphus, you know? Push the boulder up, watch it roll back with interest. I forced a grin, but it wobbled. Kansas City was the longest. 6 months at a bookstore, alphabetizing other people's escapes. Read more Kerouac than was healthy. Brandon nodded, fork pausing midair, pie forgotten. Sounds poetic. Better than here anyway. Mills got me on third shift, feeding sheets into machines that don't care if you're hungover or heartbroken. Dad still thinks I'm finding my way. But Mom, he sighed, gaze drifting to the rain-streaked window. She asks about you sometimes. Subtly, like, whatever happened to that nice boy from the team? I tell her you're off seeing the world. The lie stung, a reminder of the families we'd both disappointed in our own ways. My folks had cut me loose with a check for startup costs, and a Christmas card that arrived late every year, and signed. His, from what I'd pieced together from Facebook stalks I regretted, were the picture of Midwestern normalcy. Barbecues, grandkids on the horizon, a son who coached Pee Wee League to atone for his wanderlust. "You ever think about going back?" he asked, voice low, like the question carried contraband. "Finishing school, I mean. Community college in Dayton's got a night program. Welding or something practical." I shook my head, chasing eggs with lukewarm Joe. "School's a ghost for me, Bran. The kind that haunts, not helps. Besides, what would I even study? How to spot a lie from a mile away?" The bitterness crept in unbidden, and I saw him flinch, the fork dropping with a clatter. "Fair," he murmured, then leaned forward, elbows on the scarred formica. "Look, about that day in Hargrove's office. I drove by your house that night, sat in the truck till 2 a.m., rehearsing what I'd say. I'm sorry, man. I should have shut Tommy down cold. But your light was off and I chickened out. Again." The confession peeled back another layer, exposing the rot beneath his golden boy facade. I wanted to hate him for it, for every missed chance, but anger was a flame that burned out quick, leaving ashes. "Why now? 3 years and you pick a storm cellar to play confessor? What's the angle, Brandon? Absolution before you go back to your safe little life." His eyes darkened, not with anger but something deeper, wounded. "No angle. I saw you duck into the barn from the road. Thought it was a vagrant at first, till I got close. Recognized that loping walk, the way you hunch when you're cold. And yeah, maybe part of me hoped, hell, I don't know, that you'd hear me out, that we could." He trailed off, rubbing his neck, the gesture so achingly familiar it twisted the knife. The waitress refilled our mugs, her smile oblivious to the minefield at our table. And in that brief interruption, I glimpsed the boy he'd been. The one who'd shared his last Snickers during finals week, who'd covered for me when I botched a play. But glimpses weren't enough. They never had been. We could have what, Bran? Been buddies again? Pretend the rumor never painted a target on my back. My voice rose, drawing a glance from the trucker at the counter. I lowered it, fists clenching under the table. "You don't get it. It wasn't just words. It followed me. Jobs lost 'cause bosses overheard whispers. Motels where the clerk double-locked the door. I changed my name once to Jay, thought it'd buy me peace. Didn't." He paled, pie pushed aside like evidence. "Jay, Jesus, Justin. I. Words failed him, and he stood abruptly, fishing a crumpled 10 from his pocket and tossing it down. Walk with me, please. Can't do this in here. The lot was empty save for his rusted Ford pickup, the one his dad had handed down like a reluctant heirloom. We paced the gravel shoulder, the highway humming distant traffic, air crisp with petrichor. He stopped by a sagging fence, hands jammed in pockets, staring at the fields rolling gold under the climbing sun. Truth? I started seeing a guy last year, in Dayton, barista named Riley, tattoos up to his elbows, plays guitar like nobody's business. Lasted 3 months till I panicked, ghosted him. Told myself it was the distance, but it was Elmwood. The weight of eyes, the what-ifs. And you, always you, in the back of my head like a song I can't shake. The admission stopped me cold, wind whipping my jacket like a flag of surrender. Brandon out, or at least trying. It reframed everything. The frozen silences, the deflections, and cracked open a door I'd bolted shut long ago. Riley, I repeated, tasting the name. He must have been something. Yeah, kind, patient, but not you. He turned, hazel eyes locking on mine, the vulnerability there mirroring my own. I was in love with you back then, just didn't have the guts to say it, but every tackle, every huddle, it was for you, to impress you, to keep you close. When the rumor hit, it was like fate handing me an out, and I took it. Coward move. Biggest regret of my life. Love. The word echoed, a thunderclap in my skull. And suddenly the years dissolved, leaving us raw, 18 again under stadium lights. I stepped closer, close enough to see the freckles across his nose, the faint scar from a childhood bike crash. You think saying it now fixes anything? I loved you too, Bran. Still do, maybe. But love's not enough when it's laced with poison. He reached out, tentative, fingers brushing my sleeve. Then let's detox. Together. No promises, no big declarations, just coffee tomorrow. And the next day, till you trust me enough to stay. The highway stretched east and west, infinite choices, but his touch anchored me, a lifeline in the churn. Tomorrow, I agreed, voice steady for the first time in years. But if you bail, I won't. His smile was small, real, the first crack of light after endless night. We drove back to town in silence, radio crackling classic rock anthems, and as Elmwood's water tower loomed, faded home of the eagles peeling like old skin, I felt the pull of roots I'd thought severed. The farmhand gig panned out, a bunkhouse on the edge of town, and Brandon dropped me there with a fist bump that lingered into a half-hug. Night, partner. Night. I watched his taillights fade, heart a war drum, wondering if this was folly or fate. Days blurred into a rhythm. Mornings hauling hay, afternoons at the mill where Brandon sneaked me lunches. Ham sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, notes scribbled on napkins. Beat the heat, evenings, walks along the riverbank, trading stories under firefly skies. He opened up about the pressure cooker of his home, Dad's belt for bad grades, Mom's whispered prayers for a normal son. I shared the loneliness of road life, the thrill of a midnight train hop that ended in a cornfield epiphany. You're enough? Alone. Laughter came easier, touches accidental at first. A hand on my back during a stumble, shoulders brushing on a bench, building like static before lightning. But shadows lingered. A week in, at the feed store, old coach Riley spotted us loading sacks, his bushy brows furrowing. That you, Whitaker? Heard you lit out for the big city. And Brandon, still chasing ghosts. The jab landed, casual as a fly ball, but it stirred the silt. That night, over beers on his porch, Brandon tensed when I mentioned it. People talk, always will, but screw 'em. We're not kids anymore. Easy for you to say. I shot back, the beer turning sour. You're the hometown hero. I'm the dropout queer who slunk back. His face hardened, mug set down hard. Don't do that. Don't make me the villain again. I'm trying here, just every damn day. The argument simmered, unresolved, and I crashed on the bunkhouse cot with resentment coiling tight. Betrayal's echo, never fully silenced. Fall crept in on crisp winds, turning the fields to amber waves and the air to apple cider promise. We'd fallen into a routine that felt dangerously like home. Brandon picking me up after shifts in his truck, radio tuned to WXR out of Chicago, windows down to let Springsteen's gravelly anthems chase the dust. We'd park at the quarry's edge, feet dangling over the drop, sharing thermoses of soup from his mom's recipe. Clumpy tomato rice that tasted like nostalgia and second chances. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the water rust red, he turned to me, knees knocking mine. Remember the dare? Summer before junior year. Tommy bet we couldn't cannonball off the high dive at the lake. I chuckled, the memory surfacing sweet and sharp. You chickened out. Said the water was too cold. Liar. I jumped first, dragged you in after. You splashed like a damn kitten. His grin faded, eyes serious. That was the night I almost said it. After, when we were drying off on the dock, stars out like buckshot. Heart was pounding harder than after the splash. The vulnerability hit like a rogue wave, and I looked away, tracing cracks in the rock. Why didn't you? Fear. The usual suspect. He nudged my shoulder, gentle. Your turn. What's the one thing you wish you'd done different? The question hung, heavy as the gathering dusk. Stayed. Fought. Told you how I felt before the world decided for us. The words escaped, unbidden, and the air thickened, charged. His hand found mine, fingers lacing tentative, calluses rough from mill work against my smoother ones from hay bales. We sat like that, palms pressed, pulses sinking, until the chill drove us back to the truck. That touch lingered, a spark that ignited stolen moments. His arm around my waist steering me through the county fair's crowd, our knees touching under diner tables, late-night calls when storms kept him awake. Talk me through it, just like you used to with plays. Romance bloomed quiet, American as a mixtape, born to run for drives, Wonderwall for slow dances in his kitchen to no one's eyes but the fridge light. But Elmwood wasn't blind. Whispers started subtle. Sidelong glances at the gas station, a trucker muttering Whitaker's pet as we loaded feed. Brandon brushed them off, but I saw the toll. The way he'd check his rearview mirror, how his laughs rang forced at the VFW poker nights he dragged me to, introducing me as old teammate, back in town. I played along, but each charade chipped at the fragile thing we were building. The betrayal came swift, a knife in the ribs from an unlikely hand. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, Brandon's phone buzzed during our quarry vigil. Tommy Reese, voice slurred from what sounded like a kegger. Hey, hero. Fair warning, your boy's stirring shit. Told Hargrove you're influencing the new hires at the mill. Said you're why the kid from Toledo quit last month. Fag agenda or some crap. The call ended, but the damage bloomed. Brandon's face drained white. Phone clutched like a grenade. Tommy's full of it. Probably drunk. Shooting his mouth off. But doubt crept in cold as November rain. Tommy, the instigator of old, now circling like a shark scenting blood. That night, alone in the bunkhouse, I scrolled old texts from road days. Ghost numbers, faded apologies from friends who'd chosen sides. Is this how it starts again? I texted Brandon at midnight. Truth or dare? You think he's right? That I'm poison? His reply pinged instant. Never. We're stronger than this. Pick you up at dawn. Quarry. Bring pie. Dawn found us there. Pie shared in silence. The betrayal's shadow long. I confronted him, Brandon said finally, crust flaking in his lap. Drove to his trailer, laid it out. He swore it was a joke gone wrong. But eyes don't lie. He's jealous. Just of us. What we have. Jealous. The word twisted, reframing the venom. But trust once cracked, spiderwebbed. And you? What do you see when you look at me now? The kid who ran? Or the man who's staying? He cupped my face, thumbs brushing stubble, gaze fierce. The man I'm falling for. Hard. Every stubborn, beautiful inch. The kiss was inevitable, born of pent-up ache. Soft at first, exploratory, tasting of cherry filling and relief. His lips warm, hesitant, then sure, hands framing my jaw as if I might vanish. We broke apart breathless, foreheads pressed, the quarry echoing our ragged inhales. "Worth the wait," he whispered, and I believed him in that sun-dappled moment. Winter whispered warnings, but we ignored them, cocooned in stolen warmth. Holiday lights strung Elmwood's Main Street, and Brandon snuck me into his family's tree trimming, hiding me in the garage with spiked eggnog while carols blared. "One day," he promised, nuzzling my neck in the dim. "No hiding, just us." Christmas Eve, we drove to Cincinnati, a neutral ground escape, motel room with a neon vacancy sign, takeout Chinese spread on the bed like a feast. We talked futures, him eyeing trade school for mechanics, me dreaming of a community college lit program, writing stories that didn't end in cellars. Laughter flowed, easy, and when he pulled me close, bodies aligning under threadbare sheets, it was comfort, not conquest. A tangle of limbs and whispers, hearts sinking in the quiet. But betrayal's seed, planted by Tommy, sprouted thorns. New Year's, back in Elmwood, the mill buzzed with fresh rumors. Not ours, but close. Whispers of layoffs for moral reasons. Eyes on Brandon's locker room banter turning awkward. He came home one night, face bruised from a slip on ice, but I knew better, the tension in his shoulders, the split knuckle. "Who?" I demanded, ice pack pressed to his cheek in our shared apartment above the hardware store. A hasty rental, our first joint leap. "Doesn't matter." But his eyes said Tommy, again, cornering him in the break room. "Choose your side, Whitaker. Town or the twink." The fight erupted, words flying like shrapnel. "It matters if you're bleeding for it. If you're lying to protect me. Us, from what? Your dad's approval? The team's ghost. I'm protecting you," he roared, voice breaking. "From this place, from them. But yeah, it hurts. Every punch, every sideways look. It's for us." I stormed out, boots crunching snow to the river, where ice cracked like my resolve. Hours later, he found me, coat draped over my shoulders, pulling me into a hug that smelled of pine and regret. "I'm done hiding," he vowed. "Tomorrow I tell Dad. All of it." Dawn brought resolve, but fate laughed. A call from the mill. Tommy, promoted to foreman, citing team cohesion issues. Brandon's hours cut. Our fragile nest threatened. The climax loomed, a storm fiercer than the last. January bit hard, frost etching the apartment windows like accusations, the radiator hissing futile protests against the cold. Brandon's demotion, no, reassignment to inventory, they called it, hung over us like a pall, his shifts stretching into graveyard hours while I patched roofs for the hardware owner's brother. Nails driven home with frustrated swings. Money tightened, ramen nights replacing takeout, but the real strain was the silence. Unspoken fears that Tommy's whispers were winning, eroding the foundation we just laid. One blizzard night, snow piling drifts against the door, we huddled under quilts, his head on my chest, heartbeat a steady drum. "Remember the cellar?" he murmured, fingers tracing lazy circles on my arm. "Felt like the end of the world. Now it's our beginning." I kissed his temple, salt tang of sweat from a nightmare he'd shaken off. Worlds end and start in basements, but this one's ours. Optimism, fragile as the ice-glazed branches outside, but it held, for a while. The confrontation brewed at the VFW hall, annual chili cook-off, a powder keg of flannel and foam cups. Brandon had sworn off, but Coach Riley cornered him at the door. "Show your face, son. Town needs its heroes." I tagged along, arm brushing his in solidarity, ignoring the stares that prickled like nettles. Inside, the air reeked of cumin and camaraderie, folding tables groaning under pots. Tommy held court by the bar, belly straining his polo, laugh booming as he slapped backs. His eyes snagged on us, narrowing to slits. "Whitaker," and the prodigal sidekick. "Grab a bowl." Made it spicy just like old times. The jab landed, and Brandon stiffened, but I squeezed his hand under the table. Steady. As we ladled chili, the burn a welcome distraction. Small talk flowed. Weather, Wolverine scores, until Tommy sidled up, breath hot with cores. "Heard you're shacked up, Bran. Cozy." But words out. Folks say you're why the mill's softening. Diversity hires, they call it. Laughable. Brandon's spoon clattered, face flushing. Back off, Tom. This ain't high school. Oh, but it is. Tommy leaned in, voice oily. Elmwood don't change. You want to play house? Fine. But don't cry when the roof caves. The room hushed, heads turning. And in that suspended breath, betrayal crystallized. Not just Tommy's, but the town's complicity. The collective shrug that had let rumors fester years ago. Brandon surged up, chair scraping, fist clenched. You started this crap back then, spread lies to feel big. Now you're foreman, still kicking down? Grow up. Murmurs rippled. Coach stepping in with a meaty hand on Brandon's shoulder. Easy, boys. Water under the bridge. But his eyes on me were pitying, and I saw the fracture. Old loyalties cracking under new truths. We fled to the truck, chilly untouched, snow swirling like confetti in a funeral march. I can't do this, Brandon choked, Will gripped white-knuckled. Told Dad last week. Quiet, over coffee. He didn't yell, just went quiet. Said, pray on it. But Tommy? He's poison, just Dad's buddy from the force. If he pushes. The fear was palpable. A third passenger squeezing the cab. Then we push back, I said, hand on his thigh. Together. Or we leave. Chicago's got mills, bookstores. Real starts. He nodded, but doubt shadowed his eyes, the betrayal's bloom spreading. Climax crashed mid-February, Valentine's a cruel joke. I'd scraped for a gift. A leather-bound journal, pages for his sketches of engines he'd tinker with in the shed. Planning a quiet dinner at the diner. But Brandon came home late, face ashen, envelope in hand. Layoff notice, restructuring stamped official. Tommy's signature at the bottom, a flourish like a taunt. It's him, Brandon whispered, crumpling it. Cornered the boss, spun tales about distractions. Low morale. Said I'd bring you in, taint the crew. Rage boiled, hot and immediate. We fight it. Union? Lawyer? This is bullshit. Discrimination, plain. But his laugh was hollow, shoulders slumping. In Elmwood? They'd laugh us out. Or worse. Dad called today. Sort your mess, boy, before it soils the name. Mom's crying. Packing my old room like I'm moving back. The room spun, betrayal's full weight crashing down. Not just Tommy's malice, but the ripples. Family fracturing, future unraveling. I pulled him close, his sobs muffled in my shirt, the journal forgotten on the table. Then we go. Tonight. Pack light, your tools, my books. Greyhound at dawn. He pulled back, eyes red-rimmed, torn. And run? Again? That's what I did to you, just left you holding the bag. Can't do that. Can't let him win. The argument tore us open, voices echoing off thin walls. Me pleading for escape, him rooted in redemption's thorns. This is home, he insisted. I fixed this. Prove we're not what they say. Home, I shouted, pain lancing. Homes where they burn you at the stake for loving wrong? That's not us, Bran. That's their cage. He stormed out into the night, truck roaring away, leaving me with the envelope's shards and a heart in tatters. Hours ticked, phone silent, until a knock. Tommy, reeking of bravado and bourbon, filling the doorway. Heard the news. Thought you'd want details, your boy's done. Told the boss about your little arrangement. Photos even. From the fair. Photos. The word gutted me, visions of candid shots, twisted into weapons. You bastard. This isn't about the mill. It's you, still scared of what you can't control. He smirked, unrepentant. Control? Nah, just truth. Elmwood's no place for freaks. Tell Bran to crawl back where he belongs. I slammed the door, but the damage was seismic, betrayal's quake toppling our tower. Dawn found me packing alone, note on the table. If you choose them, I understand. But I choose us. Bus leaves at 8. Love, just. The station was a ghost town. Coffee vending machine humming dirge. My ticket clutched like a lifeline. Minutes ticked, resolve hardening to grief, until tires crunched. Brandon's truck, sliding to a stop, him leaping out, duffel in hand, face streaked with tears or melt. I couldn't tell. "I'm in," he gasped, pulling me into a crush of wool and warmth. "All in. Screw the rest." We boarded as the sun crested, hands clasped, Elmwood shrinking rear view, the road ahead a blank page. The Greyhound lurched north, engine growling like a beast shaking off winter, seats sagging under the weight of our duffels and unspoken vows. Chicago loomed, skyline a jagged promise against the flatlands. And as mile markers blurred, Brandon's head lolled on my shoulder, breath evening into sleep. I traced the scar on his knuckles, fist to dashboard in some forgotten rage, and marveled at the man beside me. Flawed, fierce, finally free. The city swallowed us whole, a concrete jungle of horns and hustle. Our first stop a flophouse off Halsted. Peeling wallpaper, shared bath, but a door that locked against the world. Brandon landed a gig at a garage in Pilsen, wrenching on Subarus for cash under the table, while I tempied at a bindery, collating pages into books I'd never afford. Nights, we navigated the L's rattle, hands brushing in crowds, stealing kisses in alley shadows where no one knew our names. Spring unfurled, tulips rioting in Grant Park, and with it, tentative blooms in us. We found a studio in Logan Square, sunny, cramped with a fire escape for summer smokes, and filled it with thrift store finds. A sagging couch, posters of Kerouac haunts, Brandon's toolbox spilling greasy blueprints. Romance deepened, woven into mundane magic. Him cooking paella from a pilfered recipe. Me reading aloud from dog-eared Ginsberg while he sketched carburetors by lamplight. Touches evolved, lazy mornings tangled in sheets. His lips on my collarbone a map of reclamation. Evenings slow dancing to Coltrane vinyls. Bodies swaying to rhythms only we heard. But betrayal's ghost trailed, a specter in late-night calls from Elmwood. His mom first, voice quavering. "Your father's worried sick. Come home, Brandon. This phase, whatever it is, it's breaking us." He hung up, face ashen, and we argued in whispers, my plea for boundaries clashing his guilt's tide. "They're family," he'd say, but I'd counter. "So am I. Don't let them drag us back." Tommy's shadow struck next, a letter forwarded from the old address. Typed missive, smug as a smirk. "Heard you're playing house in the big city. Hope the freaks fit your bill. Dad sends regards. Says the mill's thriving without distractions. Stay gone." Enclosed, a photo. Us at the fair, arms slung casual, cropped to imply more. Brandon burned it in the sink, flame-licking edges, but the ash lingered in his eyes. Climax crested in June, heat wave baking the streets, our first fight a furnace. I'd enrolled in night classes at Harold Washington, creative writing, a spark I'd nursed on diner napkins, and Brandon supported, but envy simmered. "Proud of you," he'd say, but his sketches piled untouched, garage hours stretching to dodge the soft city boys who flirted open. One night, coming home reeking of motor oil and someone else's cologne, he confessed, "Met a guy at work, Carlos. Nothing happened, but he asked me out." Felt validating. After Tommy's crap. Validating. The word ignited old wounds flaring. "So I'm not enough? The dropout who dragged you here? But you need a side of machismo to feel whole." Voices rose, shattering the studio's fragile peace. Me accusing abandonment, him defending curiosity's itch. "You think this is easy?" he yelled, pacing the fire escape, city lights haloing his silhouette. Left everything. Dad's silence louder than screams. Mom's prayers like chains. For us, just. But yeah, I wonder sometimes if I'm gay enough, man enough after years pretending. The rawness gutted me, and I joined him outside, metal groaning under our weight. "You're enough. Always were. But doubt's a thief. Steals trust before you notice." We sat, backs to railing, sharing a warm beer from the mini fridge, confessions spilling like rain. He admitted the photo's haunt, the fear of being Elmwood's joke forever. I owned my paranoia, roots in the rumor's soil. Dawn found us entwined, apologies murmured into skin. the fight a forge tempering us stronger. Summer waned and growth took root. Brandon started a portfolio pitching custom bike mods to hipster shops. I submitted a short story to a lit mag, Cellar Confessions, availed our tale, and got a nod, ink on rejection slips turning encouraging. We joined a group at a Rogers Park Center. LGBTQ plus vets and wanderers swapping war stories over coffee. And there, in circle shares, Brandon voiced his betrayal. Town turned love to lie, but here, it's truth. Applause rippled, and his hand in mine felt unbreakable. Fall brought reconciliation's olive branch. A call from his mom, tentative. Saw a card from the city, your father's not ready, but I'm trying. Send pictures. We did, us at the bean, goofy grins reflecting infinity. And her reply, a postcard. Proud. Love, Mom. No mention of me. But the door cracked, humanistic grace in the gesture. Yet conflict simmered, a low boil. Tommy resurfaced via Facebook. A friend request Brandon ignored. But screenshots circulated in our group chat. Posts mocking city fairies. Tagged oblique. He's watching. I warned, unease coiling. Waiting for a slip. Brandon shrugged. But tension etched his sleep. Nightmares of cellars and whispers. One October night, after a reading where I shared Cellar, crowd murmurs electric. We celebrated at a dive, shots of Jameson, his toast slurring. To you, Juss, my anchor, my everything. Home. Buzz fading to ache. He pulled me close. Love making a tender storm. Bodies mapping scars. Breaths sinking in release. Afterward, curled against him, I whispered, promise me. No more ghosts. Promise? He breathed. But dawn brought the call. Dad, voice gravel. Your mother's sick. Cancer. Come home, son. For her. The pull tore at him, Elmwood's gravity unyielding. Just a visit, he assured, packing light. Back by week's end. But weeks stretched, silence growing weeds. Texts sparse. Mom's chemo rough. Dad's thawing. Then, a photo, him at the hospital, Tommy in the background, hand on his shoulder. Supportive? Or snare? Panic clawed. I booked a bus, resolve steel. Elmwood greeted gray. The cellar's echo in every corner. The hospital smelled of bleach and despair. Fluorescent hum underscoring the beeps of monitors down halls that stretched eternal. I found Brandon in the waiting room, slumped in vinyl chair, coffee cold in his fist, eyes hollowed by vigils. He startled at my approach, surging up into a hug that crushed breath from lungs. Juss, God, you came. Always. I held him, feeling bones sharp under flannel. The man who'd rebuilt me fraying at seams. His mom lay pale in the room beyond, tubes a cruel lattice, but her smile flickered faint at my entrance. Justin, the stories, Brandon reads them, keeps me going. We sat vigil together, hands linked under the bed rail, Dad a specter in the corner. Face carved granite, but nods replaced glares. Appreciate you, he grunted once, over vending machine sandwiches. A bridge of white bread and reluctant grace. Tommy lurked, inevitable as frost. He appeared days in, bearing flowers and false concern, cornering Brandon in the cafeteria. Tough break, man. Family first, right? Ditch the baggage. Focus here. I overheard from the hall, blood roaring, and stepped in, voice steady. Baggage? That's rich from the king of dead weight. Leave him be. His laugh was bark, eyes venom. Protective. Cute. But Elwood's small secret spill. Your little love nest? Town knows. Mama Whitaker hears praying extra for that sin. The slur landed, but Brandon wheeled. Face thunder. Enough, Tom. You've poisoned enough lives, mine, his, now hers? Get out. Security escorted him, but the damage festered. Whispers in halls, Dad's silences deepening. Nights, in a motel off the interstate. Too broke for more hospital cots. Brandon unraveled. He told Dad everything. The photo, the phase. Said you'd ruin me, like the rumor ruined us. Betrayal's final twist, Tommy's magnum opus. And it broke him open. I confronted Dad, full truth. He walked out, slammed the door. Mom cried. begged us to fix it. But just, you can't lose them. Not now. The chasm yawned, love's fault line. And me? Am I the fix? Or the fracture? Tears hot, I paced the threadbare carpet, heart a riot. We've built something real, Chicago, the stories, us. Don't let him torch it. He pulled me down, forehead to forehead, breaths mingling. You're my everything. But this, gesture to the dark window, Elmwood's lights winking betrayal. It's her dying wish, normalcy, a son who stays. Climax peaked that storm-lashed night, thunder echoing our first cellar sanctuary. Mom slipped away at midnight, hand in Brandon's. Last words a whisper. Be happy, truly. Dad shattered then, sobs wrenching from a chest armored decades. And in the grief's raw forge, he turned to us, me included. Should have seen sooner. Sorry, don't cut it. But, try. Funeral was a blur of casseroles and condolences. Tommy absent but his poison pervasive. Notes in the program, God have mercy. We endured, arms linked. The town stares a gauntlet we walked unbroken. After, in the empty house, Mom's quilt on the bed, Dad's nod permission, we packed the truck, Chicago calling. But Brandon hesitated at the door, eyes on the family photo wall. Us kids, grinning gap-toothed. What if we stay? Fix this place. Show 'em wrong. The choice loomed, humanistic fork. Flight or fight, love or legacy. I cupped his face, thumb tracing lip. We can, together, but only if it's us first. He nodded, resolve dawning. Us first. We returned to the city changed, Dad's occasional calls a thread to roots. Awkward but mending. Brandon opened a shop in Pilsen, Whitaker's Wheels, customizing for the queer crowd. Rainbow pinstripes on Harleys, pride flags on dashboards. I published Cellar Echoes, a novel of rumors and redemption, dedication. For Be My Storm, my shelter. Tommy faded. A footnote. Fired for misconduct. Rumor mill turning on him at last. We married quiet. Rooftop overlooking the lake. Vows exchanged under stars. Through betrayals and basements, I choose you. Years wove us tighter. A dog named Rye, adopted from a shelter. Stories read to neighborhood kids, teaching them whispers hold no power. Dad visited once, tentative, bearing pie, your mom's recipe, and stayed for dinner, laughter cracking ice. In the end, it wasn't triumph or tragedy, but grace. Two boys from a cellar, building a world wide enough for truths. Love, American as apple pie and open roads, proving rumors rust, but hearts endure.